I took a deep breath before pushing open the heavy side door of Lechley Manor, one of the most imposing residences in the Westbury area of rural England. The morning breeze mingled the scent of lavender from the garden with that of freshly applied furniture polish. My worn shoes sank discreetly into the red carpet of the service entrance. It wasn't common for a maid to be called in quickly to replace another on a day off, especially in such a traditional estate. But when the housekeeper became unwell, the maid didn't hesitate to send me. After all, a cleaning job is a cleaning job even when the carpets are worth more than a year's salary. I tied my hair back with a dark scarf, adjusted my white apron over my simple cotton dress, and climbed the discreet stairs to the upper wing. And it was there, before the ornate door to the master bedroom, that everything began to unravel. The door opened slowly, revealing a gentleman who looked like he'd stepped straight from the pages of a forbidden romance novel. He was still damp, wearing only a white towel around his waist, his bare chest glistening in the soft light from the windows. His dark brown hair dripped with water and fell unruly over his forehead. One hand was idly scratching the back of his neck, the other clutching a crumpled letter. "Ah, is that you who came?" he said, in a slurred, grave voice, as if he were just waking from a dangerous dream. I swallowed hard. My hand gripped the duster tightly as my little flower, if you know what I mean, was giving warning signs. "Yes, sir. I'm Annabelle. I've come in place of Mrs. Millicent, who wasn't feeling well this morning." He looked me up and down, and it wasn't that bureaucratic look between a boss and a maid. It was like someone devouring sin before it's even forgiven. "Come in, Annabelle. I was about to leave, but I changed my mind," he said, a half smile on his moist lips. I walked in, feeling a blush creep up my neck. The room was a delirium of luxury: oriental rugs, polished mahogany furniture, wide windows with lace curtains filtering the soft sunlight. And that scent, a mixture of shaving lotion, incense, and something else, something masculine, warm. As I took the cloths out of the basket, my eyes insisted on following his walk around the room, the loose towel threatening to give way with every step. A drop of water ran down his back and lingered on the curve of his waist. I had to hold back a sigh. I tried to focus on the fireplace. I rubbed the cloth vigorously, as if I could wipe away the desire along with the dust. But then he returned. This time, he was wearing a white linen shirt, clinging to his still damp body, and looser cotton pants that revealed the outline of his firm thighs. "Would you like some tea?" he asked, already turning on the small silver kettle on the end table. "Yes, if you don't mind, sir," I replied, trying to appear less flustered. "Strong or mild tea?" he asked, and his gaze rested on my eyes as if probing what I most desired. "Strong," I murmured, strong like the sensation he evoked. He poured 2 cups and brought mine. Our fingers touched for a moment around the hot porcelain. The heat didn't come from the drink, but from his skin. My skin was covered in goosebumps, my cheeks burning, my stomach tightening. "Careful, it's hot," he whispered, but no hotter than he was. I went back to cleaning, even though I knew I couldn't stay focused. He walked slowly across the room, and when he passed behind me at the central table, our bodies almost brushed. My hip felt the heat of his leg. I pretended to ignore it, but something inside me was already screaming. "Have you been doing this long?" he asked, his voice lower, more drawled. "Since I was 17. Now I'm 24. I do a little of everything. Wherever they call me, I go." "And always with this dedication?" I glanced over my shoulder. He stood still, arms crossed, watching me with an intensity that made my headlights flicker under his blouse. The thin wool of the fabric no longer disguised the state of my body. "It's my way, sir." "I noticed," he replied, and that simple sentence shot through me like lightning. I backed away to the window, trying to cool my blood. The view of the fields was beautiful, but the warmth of him behind me was what made me dizzy. I felt his presence approaching. His breath fanned the back of my neck. There was no touch, but the warm air was enough to make my little flower throb. "This view is enchanting," I murmured. "But it lost its charm in your presence." I closed my eyes, wanting to retreat, but my legs wanted to stay, and that's when he moved closer, so close that the fabric of his shirt brushed my arm. He rested his forehead against mine, without warning, without permission. He just touched. And that was enough. My entire body reacted. My legs parted discreetly, as if they had a will of their own. The tips of my breasts hardened beneath my blouse. Heat rose from the ground, from my skin, from my soul. "You're going to drive me crazy," I whispered. "Only if I can go crazy with you," he replied, his voice drunk with pent-up desire. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was dense, like the air in the main house's greenhouse. A breath was enough to light the fire, and the breath was there, between us. If you've also felt that heat on the back of your neck, that delicious shiver that comes from the forbidden, you already know, right? Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me here in the comments what you would do in Annabelle's place. Because this is just the beginning. I took a deep breath. The ruby wine still tinged my lips. The music echoed softly from the record player in the background, and his scent. Ah, that scent of English shaving lotion with a hint of something warmer, more primal, made me spin inside. My hands remained glued to the oak table. The cloth trembled between my fingers. My feet, ready to flee, remained anchored to the polished floor. That's when I felt very slowly the touch of his fingertip on my bare shoulder, as if removing an imaginary strand of hair. A gesture so gentle, it sent a shiver down my spine, if you know what I mean. "Your skin shivers even in the breeze from the fireplace, doesn't it?" he whispered in that husky, malicious voice, as if he knew the effect it had. "You're testing my limits," I replied, still with my back turned. "And you, mine?" he replied with dangerous ease. He took 2 steps back. The silence between us turned to embers. I pretended to return to work, but I could barely see the wood I was polishing. I went to the guest room to get the small straw broomany excuse to breathe, but when I pushed open the door, there he was, leaning against the closet threshold, arms crossed, his gaze fixed on me, as if I were my most intimate shadow. "Are you sure it's just cleaning you do so well?" I let out a short laugh. It wasn't humor, it was nerves. "Do you usually act like this with all the maids?" "With the ones who take my breath away, yes. But you're not just a maid, Annabelle. You're something else." "Then tell me, what am I?" He didn't hesitate. "The thing I shouldn't want. But I do, so badly." I took a step. He did too. We stood 2 breaths apart. Me with the broom in my hand, him with the look that stripped me bare. "Are you testing my intentions?" "I'm testing your courage." I had to take a deep breath. I was just a poor girl. He was the heir to a cotton empire, the former fiancé of the lady of the house. And now, there, dangerously unarmed before me. "Courage for what?" "To stop pretending you don't want me," he said, his voice a whisper filled with gunpowder. My little flower contracted tightly. I took a hesitant step. He stepped out of the way, but left the provocation. "I just want to see if you can walk past me, without trembling." "Bastard." I did. 1 step, 2. I felt his scent invade my space, lotion, clean sweat, and a manly heat that effortlessly dismantled me. My entire arm broke out in goosebumps. He saw and said softly, 1-0 for me. I left the room with my heart in my hands, and my panties, well, wet as morning dew. I tried to recover on the back porch, sweeping as if it depended on it to keep me from collapsing. Minutes passed in silence, but he wouldn't disappear from my skin. Suddenly, I heard his voice coming from the main hall. "Do you dance?" I turned my face, confused. "Excuse me?" "Come on. he said, with that indecent tone disguised as kindness. When I entered, he was there with the gramophone playing. The needle played a slow song, an instrumental jazz tune with the whisper of a saxophone in the background. A song that seemed made for disobedience. A dance, that's all. I promise not to touch you. He held out his hand. Trust? I didn't even trust my knees, much less him. But I did. I placed my hand in his, and he kept his promise. He led with elegance, without crossing the line. But the heat, the heat seeped through the fabric. The tips of my breasts hardened beneath the thin blouse. The little flower had already decided for me before the music began. You dance well, he said, his eyes glued to my lips. So do you, but you're dangerous. Why? Because every time you look at me like that, I forget I'm here for work. He smiled, and in that second, he slowly turned my body. As he brought me back, his hand rested firmly on my waist. It wasn't aggressive, it was natural. As if my body was the right place for that hand. The world fell silent, though the jazz continued. We were in the eye of the storm. You shouldn't, should you? I whispered. You never should. But what happens when your body wants more than your reason? The song ended. He gently released my hand. Forgive me if I overstepped, but you were the one who brought me here. I went to the pantry, pretending to look for something, but I couldn't remember what. My body was still dancing inside. I bumped into a crystal glass. He fell and shattered on the tile floor. I bent down to pick up the pieces, but my hands were shaking. Are you okay? He appeared beside me, his eyes glued to mine. Just with your head, somewhere else. He picked up a shard of glass, and our fingers touched again. It was a shock, a silent thunderclap. Your eyes change color when you're nervous, he murmured. And you observe too much for someone who pretends to be only nice. I don't pretend at all, Annabelle. I want to, and so do you. I took a deep breath. The floor beneath my knees was cold, his skin was warm. The jazz music played on the record player, and the smell, my God, that smell. I no longer knew where he ended, and I began. Kiss me, he whispered, only if you want to, but if you don't, say so now. I opened my eyes, trembling. I want to. He didn't advance like a hungry wolf. He approached reverently. He pressed his nose against mine. He waited. He pressed his forehead against mine, as if first asking my body for permission. And my body had already said yes. The kiss didn't come like a flash of lightning. It came like the heat of a candle. Slow, warm, wet. His lips tasted mine as if searching for meaning. His tongue entered timidly, respectfully, until mine responded. Then it became a confession. My hands found his shoulders, feeling the damp fabric of his shirt and the firm skin beneath. He held my waist firmly, and that was when everything came crashing down. My little flower begged, throbbed, begged for more. You're better than any fantasy, he whispered against my lips. That's because you haven't even undressed me yet. We stood. He held me possessively by the waist and gently pressed me against the cold wall of the pantry. And I already knew that what would come next, no one would ever be able to erase from memory. So, would you have resisted in Annabelle's place? Or would you have let your heart guide your steps in that forbidden dance? Tell me in the comments, I want to hear your opinion. And of course, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because the next chapter, the next one, is going to be hot. The cold wood of the wall pressed against my sweaty skin. The heat of his hand rose boldly from within my half-open corset. His fingers ran down my waist until they found my breasts, exposed and firm, like the secret we'd kept since our first exchange of glances. He touched them with a mixture of zeal and malice, squeezing lightly, like someone reverently savoring a ripe fruit. I let out a low moan, muffled by my own surprise and by the risk. My neighbor in the mansion might have heard, but when he smiled and said, "Shh," I responded with my lips pressed against his. Their problem. The kiss that followed was no longer flirtatious. It was urgency. It was desire that overflowed like spilled wine. Our breath mingled with the sound of our tongues, of skin slapping against skin, of my body surrendering without shame. He lifted me easily, as if I were a feather, and he, the whirlwind, he carried me to the mansion's main hall. We walked down the ancient hallway to the sound of the wall clock, but there, time was no longer of any value. He laid me down carefully on the burgundy velvet sofa. Every gesture was a ritual. He removed my dress with the delicacy of someone unwrapping a secret. He kissed my shoulders, my neck, every inch of exposed skin. When his lips reached my left breast, I felt as if I'd lost my footing. His tongue circled with precision, while his right hand firmly squeezed the other and his left left warning bites. I tried to touch his body, to remove his linen shirt, but he held my wrist. "Let me take care of that." He undressed slowly, keeping his eyes on mine, piece by piece, as if each button were a vote of confidence. When he was left in only his drawers, I bit my lip to keep from moaning. And when the last piece fell, it was as if I were standing before a living sculpture. Large, sturdy, carved by necessity. He removed my petticoat with kisses, and when he reached the last barrier, me lacy pantish looked me in the eye. I consented, and he removed them with his teeth, sending shivers through me. My little flower, already wet, pulsed with the heat of anticipation. When his tongue touched me, I closed my eyes and let my body lose itself. It was as if he were playing an instrument with invisible strings inside me. He sucked, bit lightly, blew warm air. He opened me with his fingers like one opening a rare flower, and I blossomed completely. Pleasure hit me in waves, first slow, then fast, tremors in my belly, in my fingers, in my soul. When I came to, he kissed me. It was a sweet, salty kiss, with the taste of both of us. "Now it's your turn," he whispered. And I pulled him inside me. Slowly, reverently, feeling every inch invade not only my body, but everything I was. The sofa creaked with our movements. The air grew denser, as if the mansion itself breathed with us. Our rhythm was music without sheet music. He knew me inside, read me like an intimate diary. And I, who had once been just a servant, was now the master of that moment. We went to heaven more than once. When we finished, he wrapped me in the wool blanket and hugged me, still panting. This was never just desire, Annabelle. And I wanted to believe, even knowing that at dawn, the world could be different. The morning light filtered through the living room's tall stained glass windows like curious fingers. I was there, wrapped in the blanket, his scent clinging to me. On my skin, in my hair, in my soul. He slept on the sofa, his arm covering his eyes. He had the serene expression of a man who, for a moment, forgot the weight of nobility. And I watched everything, sitting, trying to understand what had happened. Not the act itself, my body remembered that well. Every muscle still reverberated with pleasure. But the aftermath, always the aftermath. I stood up carefully. My legs trembled, as if the floor now seemed strange to me. I picked up my corset, which lay on the carpet like a silent witness to the previous night. My pants. No sign. It must have been hidden behind some armchair, forgotten in the frenzy of hunger. In the kitchen, everything was a remnant. The aroma of wine, the crumpled tablecloth, a misplaced glass. The perfect house now bore traces of the mess we'd made together. And I, accustomed to cleaning everything, hesitated, because not every mess deserves to be undone. I washed my face in the white sink, stared into the mirror. The Annabelle staring back at me wasn't the same. There was something new there. A whole woman, with teary eyes and lips marked with promises. I left the bathroom and found him leaning against the door, barefoot, pants half done, hair disheveled. I thought you'd left without saying goodbye. I thought, but my body wouldn't let me. He laughed. He pulled me by the waist, pressing his forehead to mine. Did you sleep well? I didn't. I'm trying to understand what that was. It was true. It was soul. I swallowed hard. What now? He looked into my eyes. Would you like coffee? Or one more kiss before you go? My heart sank. What if I want both? He smiled. Then sit down. I'll make the coffee and kiss you when the cup is full. I sat down. I watched every gesture. The way he stirred the wood-fired coffee pot, the way he picked up the porcelain cups, the way he moved with that body still marked by the night. He was confident, firm, and dangerous. The aroma of coffee brought me back to reality. I had duties, laundry, bills, obligations, and he had meetings with important gentlemen, a life where I was just a chapter. When he placed the cup in front of me and kissed my mouth tenderly, I felt something sweet and painful at the same time. It was too good to last, and it hurt to know that. Can I see you again? Pause. The world stopped. You can, but I don't know if you should. Why? Because I'm a woman who gives herself up, and you seem like a man who passes by. He became serious. He pulled me by the chin. What if I want to stay? I wanted to say yes. I swear to God I did. But my reality weighs on me. I know who I am, and I know how much the world demands of us, having been born into parallel realities. Write me a letter, I said, standing up. Will you write me back? Only if it's to mess things up again. We kissed one last time. A slow, deep kiss, full of unspoken promises. And then I left, with the morning wind blowing on my face. The city was waking, but I had already experienced a night worth all the others. I grabbed my bag and took a deep breath. Maybe he wouldn't write, maybe he would, but just having felt what I felt was worth the mess. What if he writes? My little flower already knows the answer. And we've reached the end of this captivating story. But tell me one thing. Have you made it this far? Comment where you're watching from. It was a pleasure having you with me on another journey through time, full of desire, intensity, and difficult choices. Don't forget to like, comment what you thought of the story, and subscribe to the channel to continue hearing stories that chill the skin and touch the soul. Until the next video.